All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is the People of Color Representation in Time Travel panel. First, though, we'd like to acknowledge that because of the name of our panel, we don't have any African American representation here. So if anybody does want to come up and talk about time travel with us in our panel, totally open. Otherwise, I think we have a small enough group of us, and we can just have a discussion about what we're going to talk about today. Can you not hear us? Oh, okay.
Because the air is like floating.
Oh, okay. Let me see. So this isn't. Is that working?
That one is.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I was just saying earlier that this is the People of Color Representation in Time Travel panel, and we recognize the title. We don't have any African American representation here on this panel. So if anybody does want to come up and join us, that's awesome. If not, I think we have a small enough group of us that we could just have a discussion. Otherwise, yeah. So audience participation is highly encouraged. So yeah, let's get started. We're going to just introduce ourselves really quick. My name is Gisella Bustillos, and I'm the moderator for this panel today. A little bit about my background. I'm a filmmaker, and I did a documentary on the history and pop culture of time travel. So I'm obsessed with time travel stories and movies and books. And something that I wasn't really able to talk about in the documentary was about diversity and specific subjects of time travel. And that's something that I felt I really wanted to talk about and explore a little bit more. So this is the panel, and I'm really excited for this conversation that we're going to have. All right. Laura, do you want to go next?
Oh, okay, already. Hi, my name's Laura. I am a freelance journalist, but I'm also an editor of the Nerds of Color, which is a pop culture for people of color, and we're all about showcasing. We're rooting for everyone, people of color. So yeah, I've written for The Hollywood Reporter, Mental Floss, Famous Monster Magazine, Movie Media, Movie View Magazine, a few other places. And I am a huge sci-fi fan, so I go to every convention, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, and Rose Tico. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of this stuff, and I've been writing about Asian representation in film, television, and film for the past few years, working with Asian American organizations for the past few years. So yeah, I'm hoping to put my perspective on that.
Awesome.
Hello, my name is Beatriz Valenzuela, and I am a freelance journalist right now. I've written for several nerdy blogs and websites, including the Nerdist, the Café con Leche Nerds, Black Girl Nerd. I spent 20 years as a crime and safety reporter for local papers, including the LA Daily News, the Orange County Register, the San Bernardino Sun. I recently left full-time journalism to do public relations for Equality California, which is the state's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization. And I'm also a moderator for She-Fi, which is Ladies of Sci-Fi.
Hi, I'm Wanda Gregory. I teach at the University of Washington. I teach interactive media and game design. I also teach media studies. I teach a class, or I have in the past taught a class on Doctor Who, currently teaching Black Mirror, and next quarter I'm actually teaching a class on time travel. Before I got into teaching, I worked in the game industry. I worked at a company called Wizards of the Coast, and I worked at Hasbro and Microsoft Xbox and a number of startups. Like I said, I am a Whovian with a 10-foot TARDIS in my backyard. So, and I have my students often get extra credit if they call me the doctor. So.
Awesome, thank you. So again, the whole point of this panel is to just share some of the diverse voices that we've seen in this genre and talk about some that worked and some that maybe didn't work as well. So before we get started though, I thought we could just start with maybe a general question. Maybe this is kind of geared more towards Beatriz and Laura, because you guys are writing about different science fiction journals. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you think the current state of diversity in science fiction is right now. What you've been seeing, yeah.
Well, right now I am seeing much more diversity in science fiction. I'm gonna do this. We are seeing more of it, but there's still a huge lack of diversity in science fiction. I think one of the last things that I saw was See You Yesterday, which is time travel based. It's a Spike Lee film from Netflix, and if you haven't seen it, it's really wonderful. It focuses on two African American genius high schoolers and how they travel back in time, but it's Spike Lee, so it has a lot more layers to it, which is wonderful, because at first it was about, and sorry if you haven't seen it, there might be some spoilers here.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have the trailer too, so we're gonna talk about it.
Okay,
Sorry.
The first goal was to get into MIT. Hey, we're going to do the science fair. So they cracked the code and they managed to go back in time. But then tragedy befalls this young girl, CJ, and her brother is killed by an NYPD officer. So then her goal becomes something completely different. And I really enjoyed that point of view, because when you generally take a look at time travel, first off, it's mostly white, but when you do start introducing people of color, specifically like with a show like Siempre Bruja, which focuses on Afro-Latina slave, it's always wrapped in spiritualism, voodoo. You hardly ever see the science base. Mm-hmm. It's more mystic. So, I love my mysticism. I love my folklore. I love the mysticism that goes with my culture. But science is also something that can be explored when it comes to people of color. So, I'm grateful to see that, and I love to see that. But definitely still sorely lacking in what I've seen.
Yeah, so for sci-fi, we always get one that we're celebrating. Like we have The Expanse, but then we have other shows that come out that lacks the diversity. Marvel's films still has issues with like diversity and people of color, but then we'll get Star Trek Discovery, which like celebrates everyone. But the problem is with sci-fi, it's just they always just give us one token. They never give us a variety of people of color, and that's not how the universe is looking like. Like I look in this room and I'm like, there's just so many different people represented here. But when I'm in sci-fi, it's like, hey, we're gonna add one Asian person, one Black person. Okay, this should be fine. And it's like that's not how we're represented.
That takes a box.
Yeah, so that is like, okay, we're ticked off. So I feel like even though we have wins, like Star Trek Discovery is fantastic. This next season's gonna be amazing with like different people, people of color and other representation as well. And we'll see. But then every win there's always something. Like we'll see other shows that will have people of color celebrated on the screen, but it's written by white people or like white males really, and it's really hard to gauge how, like when we see representation, we see it and we're like, this is awesome, but when we look at the creative team, I don't want a person who doesn't represent me to write about me. Mm-hmm. In the sci-fi world. I mean, there's a lot of positives, so I'm glad to see that slowly changing, but there's still a lot to be done creatively.
And if I may say, sort of with the show Siempre Bruja, I was so excited. I saw the trailer. I was like, yes, we have Afro-Latinx representation, and then when you see it, you just feel so let down, and then you look around and there's nothing else for you to go to. There's, you're like, well, it almost feels like that was my shot, or that was my, that was the one show, and if it does, which is also kind of hard on the creators, because you are expected to sort of carry for everyone, and at its core it's a telenovela, which gets to be a little more loosey-goosey with stuff, but yeah, you look around and now you're like, well, okay, let's wait until someone decides to do something else or decides to fund something else. So yeah, I do see that.
Yeah, so there's definitely more diversity, but still needs work.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say with the creative team and who's writing these stories. I mean, if you go back to amazing stories back in the 20s and 30s, I mean, it was predominant. Well, it was white males writing those sci-fi stories, and I think as we're moving forward, and I see this in my students, there's more of an interest in women in general, but just everyone. They want to really understand and they want to see themselves on screen. I mean, I saw it early with women on screen. Why aren't there more sci-fi? Why isn't there more sci-fi stories that have really compelling female characters? And so I think this is moving on from that. And so I take solace in the fact that there is a generation that is looking to create this, and they ask those questions: why? Why can't we see ourselves in there? So
Yeah, I think that's actually great, Wanda. We should kind of segue that into Doctor Who, because Doctor Who is such a it's like one of the longest running TV shows ever, and diversity in Doctor Who has changed since the 1960s.
yeah, and I would say particularly how many Whovians are out here? Okay, yay, raise it high. Anyway, I mean, so you would probably seen, were you classic doctor, or you were classic doctor? Okay. Both, okay. So, I mean, I think, quite frankly, looking at the most, I like Tom Baker, I will admit. But, yeah, didn't bring my scarf. But anyway, but I think that I'm hopeful in the most recent, in the reboot, if you will. I mean, particularly, I found it, I was happy to see so many interracial couples. To me, that was interesting that both Moffat, whether you like Moffat or not, we don't need to get into that, or Davis, but you just started to see, you had Rose and Mickey, although, Mickey winds up with Martha, but even with Clara and Danny, and, you started to see these different, and Donna as well, you started to see this kind of, and it wasn't like, oh, this is a big deal. This is how we are today. This is what we look like. And the fact that you had more recently two companions. I mean, we've got some clips of Martha Jones, who, she did stand. She was a doctor. Now was she, or a medical doctor, but I think we can argue that she might not have been treated as well as she should have been, taking on that more nurturing role. But still, we had that character, and then of course we had Bill Potts, and that character who I would say could stand toe to toe with the Doctor. So I think that those kind of observations I find comforting, as opposed to some of the earlier representations. And I know, we'll talk a little bit about Yellowface and such, and going back to the Baker era. But I think that there are some changes being made, and we could argue that it's made for commercialization and expanding their demographics and such. But I do think there's a heartfelt. It is reflecting who we are as people today. So.
Regarding Doctor Who with time traveling and people of color, like I said before, it's like, oh, we see them, but a lot of Moffat and Davis's time was written by white people, and so Mickey was got the short end of the stick.
Oh, totally.
He deserved so much more.
Oh yeah.
And so does Martha. Bill too had moments where I'm like, it follows the trope of her death. And killing off a black woman. And then this is the first season ever that we're addressing, really addressing race with the 13th Doctor, because she has two companions of people of color. And not only that, I feel like, and they're finally getting writers who reflect the characters. So Doctor Who, I know people are celebrating, and it's worth celebrating. It's a great show. It does show representation on screen, but now I feel like it's getting better when you hire writers who represent that. And so there's been, I mean, before they yellow face like crazy in the classic Who and red face too. And then now with this, and I like how they addressed with the 12th Doctor, they address race. Oh, well, with the 10th Doctor too, they address race regarding time traveling.
Yeah.
Before, I felt like they didn't really address that when it came to the Aztecs, because when like with Indian and like Native American and white relations, it's totally was not okay back then. So I'm glad that they're addressing everything now, and they're actually having creative team who know how to craft it. Versus before, it's like, oh, you know, this character is black, so of course she's going to have a difficult time. But it's like there's more to it, and I'm glad that they're actually getting a writing team. Even though I kind of wish they got an African American or black woman from America to kind of do the Rosa Parks episode.
Yeah, I wish that too.
Cool. So I have a couple clips that Wanda pulled up. I don't know. Do you want to?
Oh,
share?
you can.
Yeah, I can share some.
We can all jump in.
Okay.
We're all Whovians.
Okay. Do you want some of the ones from Tom Baker? Do you want me to show those first, or
We'll start with Tom Baker. Go forward. What do you think?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that.
All right.
Little.
So this is Leela under attack. Let me see if I can.
You might hear me go, ugh.
I know.
All right. Do you want to give a little explanation of like what episode this is? and
You
stuff?
can go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead and describe the episode.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry.
I think from my perspective, how many of you have seen this episode, Talons? I mean, it's classic Who. I mean, it really is. It's ones people go to. And I think what's interesting that it takes every cliche of Asians representation and sort of, you know, bad enough that I think it was John Bennett, wasn't it, who plays the lead character in this. But I think also, I mean, it's opium dens, and it's stealing white women, and it's, you know, it just goes on, and even the comments about, you know, food, and, you know, it's disturbing, and it's disturbing for another reason as well, is that as you probably know, early Who, classic Who was you know, originally designed under Hartle, you know, I mean, it was designed as a almost educational, so it was an educational series. And so the fact that even if this is in the 70s, under, you know, that there's still that lens that it's being looked at under, and so I mean that I think is what, you know, still kind of makes me wince. But I think I picked this scene or this clip, and I think there's another one just to show, you know, to see the representation of Asians in particular, you know, of Chinese, and how they're representing this in a show that you know, it's for kids, because it was for kids. So that's mine. And you all know who Leila is. So.
Professor? Are you there? Professor!
Yeah, that happened.
Where's Lightfoot?
He went out. He said he'd seen a Chinaman outside the window.
And you jumped through it.
Something like that.
Stay here.
We didn't start with that one, but
Yeah.
chronologically.
Yeah, so when was that? Do you know when?
70s.
1977.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, and there's no representation, no even story about a diverse character there, like the villain and it's Yellowface, and yeah.
The crazy thing is that they had extras who were Chinese,
I know.
and they could have used those actors.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they could have used those actors
Yeah.
to actually portray the characters,
Mhm.
but they decided to just have them in the background. So
Yeah.
basically, they use our images, but not us as
Yeah.
characters. So that was aggravating. But yeah, like when I see things like that, it was 1970s. Like that's not that far
Yeah.
far back then, and I mean it's changed now, but it's crazy that I understand during Hartnell's era for them to have that because like 60s like it was horrible, still horrible, still horrible today, but you would think it would gotten better because of like more Asian actors were more represented, like Toshiro and like Tafuni. It's like you would think that there would be more, but they have this like things like this for time traveling. But yeah, that was the past. Hopefully it gets better. Like as we're gonna show more clips.
Yeah.
Because don't you think too, it goes off of like, you even go back to Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and you go back to that where they had
Ming.
Yeah.
Ming,
Yeah.
you know, and how that was. I mean, that was, what was that, 40s or 50s?
I feel like anything anything sci-fi back then
Yeah. was-
has just not been great. Time travel, like anything going back to like past when they have to reflect on people of color, it's never. It's like in their minds it was like Hollywood was white and it was okay. It's kind of like jokes back like 10 years ago people thought was okay, and then when we reflected like no, it's not. But yeah.
There was no representation in the 40s because I had mentioned before, I'm also a classic movie buff. So I'll watch Turner Classic Movies, and on Saturday and Sunday movies, mornings, they have Buck Rogers on. And
Yeah.
when you look at it through a modern lens, it does take you back. But there was, I mean, same thing happened in those movies where you would see the people of color in the background, but they could never put them in the foreground unless it was in some sort of subservient role. And it got even worse back in the 40s where they just weren't even visible. So no, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to gauge because it's the 70s, and so
It wasn't that long ago.
it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean even now we still have issues of studios. We still have issues of studios hiring people of color and interchanging them.
Mhm.
So like time traveling, like in class, one of the Doctor Who spin-offs, there was a
Yeah.
Indian character. He's Sikh, but he's played by Egyptian guy, actor, who is beautiful. He was beautiful, but like, but the thing is, like, he wasn't Sikh. He's not Indian descent, so he had no like reflection of the stories, but studios, BBC, they still kind of lump us together. Well, he's dark skinned, so we're gonna have him play a Sikh Indian, British Indian character. So I mean, we still have it today.
Yeah, it's more brown interchangeable.
Yeah.
You know, so
Like, oh well, he's Asian somehow, like, or he looks it. He's passing, so it's fine.
Should I show one more Doctor Who clip for more of a modern time, or should we move on to another?
Yeah, we could, let's see, what do we have?
I have all the
Yeah, we have,
character.
let's see.
Okay.
Should we look at one? What, do we want to move on? We'll move on.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on. All right, so the next one that we're going to show is Siempre Bruja, which is what Beatriz was talking about, and I'll show you guys the trailer and then we'll talk about it. How many of you have seen this,
Yeah,
by
how
the
many
way?
have you seen this?
All right, okay.
So few.
Wait.
So excited.
Dueñas del monte.
Ahora estaba por mi propia cuenta cientos de años lejos de mi tiempo.
Usted los turistas que se creen dueños de todo.
No tengo el oro para pagarme.
¿Oro? ¿Y esta de dónde salió?
Cierto que también es como rara.
Dime la verdad. ¿Eres bruja?
Es que hay alguien en el pasado que me espera.
Terminé quiere recuperar a Cristóbal y no me voy a dar por vencida.
Pero tienes que tener mucho cuidado. Lucien huele el poder de las brujas a distancia. La va a convertir en ceniza, como lo ha hecho con muchas de nosotras.
Yo ni siquiera sé cómo controlar mis poderes. Soy un desastre.
¿Qué sale?
Las personas que usan magia deberían saber que todos los hechizos tienen un lado bueno y un lado malo.
Esto es muy peligroso. Se lo tengo que hacer sola.
Por favor, déjame ayudarte, por favor.
Yo también quiero ayudar.
¿Tienes miedo?
¿Pero qué es lo peor que puede pasar? Okay, so that is the trailer for Siempre Bruja, and I remember this just came out 2019, and I remember when I saw this trailer, I was really excited because it's about this time traveling witch, but there was a lot of people who disliked it when it came out because of. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure.
Just, yeah.
So, as I said earlier, I was super excited to see this kind of representation on screen. Finally we have an Afro-Latina lead, which you hardly ever see anymore. So, out of the gate, it was a little problematic. It was a lot problematic because she was a slave in Cartagena and fell in love with the son of the slave owner who offered to buy her. So already we're not starting out very well. She makes when the mother of the slave owner's son, the slave owner's wife, becomes upset when she notices this relationship blossoming and accuses her of being a witch, which she is. She is sent to jail. There she meets a wizard who promises her that he will save her and sends her to the future, 200 years in the future, but she will have to do something in order to be able to come back. So she agrees, and as you saw when she's being burned, she ends up in 2019 Cartagena. There's some other problems with it because she doesn't seem super startled or shocked by cars. She's more impressed by an app.
Yeah.
So her reactions were not great.
Yeah,
And
I think that was my biggest problem with it. It didn't seem realistic if you're like traveling from, when was she from? Like the
1800s, so 1819, and
Yeah.
she came to 2019.
Yeah, and
so.
I felt like it could have been such an interesting conversation to be had about like society today, where we're at 200 years in the future. And I felt
Absolutely.
like they didn't even address that at all, which is kind of sucked. But
Yeah.
The problematic thing I had was that she was finally she was a slave, and then she went to the future where she's free and there's more diversity there, and then she wants to go back, and that just follows the trope of it's like the Ancestry.com commercial that was super problematic of a slave and the slave owner falling in love. That just watching this when I watched it, my friends were like, this is horrible. I'm like, I'm gonna watch it just to see how horrible. And I'm like, yes, this is horrible. And I couldn't get through it because it's just this character was finally among her peers. She got to live, was able to live her life. But yet she wanted to go back to him, and which bothers me because it's like, no white man's worth that. And so Chris, no one's worth it. No one's worth going back in time and being a slave. No one. And so the fact that she wanted to go back in time, that was a problematic thing for me because it's like it romanticizes slavery and love for nomads, and it's not. It should never be romanticized.
That's actually my question to that is do you think it's a detriment to have these kind of shows like this? Do you think this is actually hurting us, or do you think this is good in the fact
if she escaped and not wanted to go back, she goes, I'm free, and F this guy,
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, cool, she's free, she's gonna live her life.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they romanticize, I'm in love with him, I need to go back, that's where I'm like, no, this show is not, it's problematic.
Well, and one of the bigger problems is that people enjoyed it and people thought, well, yeah, this is fine, this is okay. No, it's not fine, it's not okay. It's not something that, well, like you said, if she comes to 2019, she sees she sees the ability, because she is a strong woman. The character herself is actually quite strong. She manages to go 200 years into the future. She figures out how to find a job within like a day and a half. She goes to university. So yeah, no, this chick is not, a slacker at all. That could have been such a stronger storyline where she looks around and she sees not as many people who look like her. As you saw in the trailer, there's still a lot of the typical telenovela whitewashing with, brown people with blonde hair. But she's seen more people like her. They're not slaves. They're not endangered. So that storyline could have been so much better if it would have just gone that way. And it could be definitely something that can be seen as a detriment to us, because people were thinking, oh no, this is perfectly fine. She did it for love. She did it for this, and and that touches on so many things. Women always compromise themselves for love for their man, no matter how bad it is. And how much worse could it be than to be property? That's awful.
So for every positive time traveling, like I said, for every positive time traveling show, like, there is always one problematic guy. That's why I'm like, there's always something. Like, it's like, oh my god, this is amazing. She's time traveling, escaping her life, and then they have this. So you kind of can tell who the writers are and who pitched it.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because I don't know if you guys, Netflix barely promoted this, and I wonder if they kind of knew ahead of time about how problematic the content was, because I think it got released in February.
It did get released in February, and when they first did the trailer, a lot of the Latinx sites started picking it up because they didn't know what it was about. So again, everybody was excited. Hey, you got to check out this new Netflix show. It's about a bruja. It's about she's an Afro-Latina. It focuses on Colombianas, which you don't see very much at all. When you think of Latinx, you think Mexican, but we're not a monolith. We are all kinds of people, all shades of people. So I saw it advertised a lot. So it was coming down my stream like crazy. And I knew a lot of other people who look like me who were excited about it, but outside of like I said, outside of that, if I didn't see it, and I was actively working for a Café con Leche nerd, so I actually sought it out. But I do believe that they probably knew it was problematic, and I do knew that was one of the productions that came out from a partnership with the creators down in Colombia, which Netflix does a lot. They have these production houses outside of the U.S. and they get X amount of stories out. So
they need content.
Casa de Rosas Casa de las Flores is a great one, but it's not time travel.
And then one more thing before we move on to the next one that I wanted to touch upon too is Beatriz and I were talking a little bit about the magic. Magic and time travel, and how that's only for indigenous people. Like, there's no indigenous or Latino Americans that are able to time travel using science fiction. Like, this is a very magical thing.
Right. So I'm doing a little research because I don't know every single time travel show or
there's
book
so
or
many.
movie.
There
There are lots and lots and lots. I was doing a search, and it looked like the majority of the time when you see Black, brown, and indigenous people, when they do time travel, it's always, a shaman, a bruja, it's a spell, it's something to that effect, it's always magical. And as we were driving in, my son points out, Miguel O'Hara can travel back in time and he's Spider-Man 2099 and he actually uses science, but I was like, you're right. So there is one Latino who traveled in time that I know of. So yeah, there's this link between people of color and mysticism, and even more removed otherness, you know, where science is something that everyone can do, and it's something that everyone can participate in. Unfortunately, people of color have been disassociated with science, so that it's mostly, you know, something that is seen that can be attainable to white men. And unfortunately, you know, people of color have contributed so much to science directly, whether they are scholars or the unfortunate truth is that they have been the subjects of terrible, you know, medical procedures that were forced upon them. So to only relegate them to mysticism, or us to mysticism and you know, subjects is terrible. You know, and a lot of times when you do see in movies and you do see a person of color, they're not the ones calling the shots. They're being dragged along. They're like, oh, you come with me because I'm the smarter one. I'm the one who knows how to do the thing. So, again, why I really, really enjoyed See You Yesterday.
Actually, we should talk about See You Yesterday next. All right, so I'm going to show you guys the trailer for See You Yesterday. How many of you guys have seen it?
Have you seen it?
See You Yesterday.
No. This is our favorite.
You'll all watch it after.
Okay.
When we get this up and running, we gonna be out of here. Stanford, Morehouse, Spelman.
Hey, bring me along. Hey, whoa. This is something Einstein spent his entire life trying to do.
We proved that time travel into the past is possible. If we just give it some time.
Scary, but you're inspiring me. You going places, CJ. Since Pops is going, I gotta make sure that you get there.
I don't need you always playing Big Brother.
I'm the only big brother you've got. NYPD to move!
Calvin Walker, a 19-year-old black teen, was allegedly shot and killed by an NYPD officer. Walker was armed with nothing but a cell phone.
I'm so sorry about all of this. If I could go back and fix it, I would.
If we just go back, get them out of there, then he's saved.
We only have so many times to get this right. Everything's gonna need to be perfect.
What's today's date?
June 28th.
Sebastian, this has to work.
It's too late. It's about controlling something we obviously have no control over.
My brother didn't deserve this. Just miss him, y'all.
How many times have you jumped back, CJ? We're not superheroes.
Where is the justice?
We can't do this anymore.
We only have 2 jumps left.
Where's the justice for our sons and our daughters? When will it end for the whole nation?
You gotta listen to us. You're going to get killed.
Netflix really has a hard time advertising really good shows for people of color. Honestly, Raising Beyond,
Raising Beyond, oh my gosh.
a few others.
I'm in the middle of that.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's so good. They have not, I mean, there's some colorism problem, but anyway, they have not like been great about advertising. See, Yesterday is like written by, the creative team is black, the directing team is black, the cast is black. It's just, it's how it should be done. For especially this topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, See Yesterday. So it was so good. Like, and it's the first time it's like a black girl and her friend are the ones who created the science. Like they're the smart kids who built the time machine, and like.
And if I may, and they're not anomalies. They go to a school specifically for science. Yeah. So they're not
like
weird thing that is happening. No, they're not. They're the norm for their school. They're just smarter than the rest of the class.
It's in real time, too. It's not like this dystopian, post-apocalyptic, blah, 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 kind of future. It's now.
Yeah, and like, I just love that it just talks about the current situation and that she uses time traveling to try to fix everything. But the thing is, our system's broken anyway. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I love this show because, or this movie because it's a social commentary on where we're at today.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of reminds me of like the Time Machine, like H.G. Wells' Time Machine, when his book. Like he wrote that book because he was making a social commentary on British culture at that time. And I think that it's so great that we went from like Doctor Who, like yellow face in the 1970s to today, where like this, and this is sad that this is like the only one that we can get excited about right now. Like there should be so much more. But yeah, that's kind of like why I love this show so
And
much.
hopefully there will be.
Yes.
Because if people see that this is successful, hopefully that will.
So this was produced, I think it was on the trailer by Spike Lee, and then Stephen Bristol, it's his first feature film that he directed, but this is based off of a short that he made. And I just wanted to pull up a quote that he talked about making the short. So Stephen says, I wanted to do a sci-fi, and I wanted to make a story about a kid trying to save his best friend from his father's drunk driving. But it was during the summer of 2014, and Mike Brown and Eric Gardner was being murdered. Those murders bled into my script. A professor of mine saw the script and advised me to either leave in the police brutality or take it out. And it was the only scene of police brutality, and she wanted to make sure I wasn't making light of it. Knowing what happened to other individuals who had been victims of police brutality, I know this cycle will continue to happen. I said that I will stick with the police brutality and move forward from there. And I think that's so it's so empowering that he stuck to his guns, because it's a professor that was like, this could have not happened in the story, and like have a social commentary in it. So, yeah.
And if I may say, the stories are out there. They're not being made because there is such a rich heritage of like Afrofuturism and Octavia Butler. They're there. They need to be made. I mean, not time travel, but I'm sure everyone remembers when they were saying that Black Panther was going to be made. And we're like, oh, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Yes, it's going to work. We want to see ourselves represented on screen. Movies like See You Yesterday and the show One Day at a Time and On Our Block. We want to see us represented respectfully on screen, and I can't believe that it's 2019 going into 2020 and we're still asking, is this what we want to see? I mean, even Pose is amazing. That's an amazing show. Not time travel again, except it's based in the 80s. So,
like if you Google, like if you just get out your phone and Google time travel movies, you'll see a poster full of white people, like a Time Machine. All the stuff that Ant-Man said in Endgame, when they listed it, like if you Google it, you'll see a whole list of movies with, these are current too, full with white people. And so even See Yesterday's not even on there. And so like when people say like, oh, do you feel like there's a change in time traveling movies and people of color? In movies, no, not at all. There's no change. Like, I mean, even though Keanu Reeves is Asian, he's our man, he is still a white character, like he in Bill and Ted, and so, but we still claim him, and so but still, it's like they never write the characters for people of color, and if they do, it's that one black guy, it's the one Asian guy or he's like a caricature. And
or he's back at the lab.
Yeah, the Asian person's always at the computer. So it's always like that situation. And so...
So kind of going off of that, what do you think, what can we do to like support diversity?
Well, we should watch the ones that do have it. Like all TV shows are doing really well. TV shows with time traveling, Expanse, Star Trek Discovery, Doctor Who is trying, so that's good. Baby stuff still, but like a lot of shows are trying to really include that. I feel like they're more aware regarding television. So I feel like we need to watch it and actually like support it. Like Star Trek Discovery, it's all about time traveling, and it's such a diverse cast, and it's beautiful. And that's the kind of stuff we need to support. Like I know everyone's like CBS All Access. I'm like, guys, it's the only way we can show people like this is what we need and want.
Okay. We have 1 more minute left, so I'm just going to open up really quick if anybody has any questions at all. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this panel. I had a question about shows such as Legends of Tomorrow, which show superheroes going back in time and it has a pretty diverse cast. But lots of times in those episodes, I feel like they either go all out and represent and talk about the problematic situation of having a black character or any person of color in the past when slavery was a thing. But in other episodes, they just kind of skip past that and just include it in there. Do you feel like there's a positive or negative to each of those portrayals, and how maybe they are trying to do that just for the plot versus trying to actually focus on social commentary present there?
Yeah, I watch a lot.
Yeah.
I was actually talking about Legends of Tomorrow earlier with my friends and them. DC has been trying so hard with diversity in the DC universe and DC. Like they try to address everything. I know sometimes they can't address it all the time because of time. I do see an effort, like when Jackson went back in time in the 1960s, they really dealt that head on, including LGBTQ with Canary. But I feel like they're really trying though. Like they just added more people of color and also more LGBTQ people in the series, and they do go back in time and they try to address it, but I think it's a lack of time, and that at least some episodes they do try to address as much as they can.
Well, and the other thing is that we can tell when a plot has been shoehorned in, and I think that that's so much more disingenuous, more insulting than to actually take the time to do a well-crafted show that actually deals with it. You know, to do an episode just to say, okay, we're again ticking boxes, saying, you know, we did the racism episode, so we're good. We did the homophobia episode, so we're good. You know, I think it again has to come from the writer's room and being authentic.
Yeah, like I know with Timeless, every episode they dealt with it, but they got to the point where they were like, we can't have him be like the person calling out these things every episode. And with Legends of Tomorrow, which is a crazy show, I feel like the writing staff, they try to make sure they put people of color in the creatives so that they can make the stories like just to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Please watch all the shows and watch See You Tomorrow.
Yeah.